Hello, friends. The most relevant of the news on the morning of the 2nd of April. First of all, the Kiev media yesterday began to disperse the news that Russia itself had shot up an oil depot in Belgorod. Zelensky's official statement contradicts this. Answering the question about who bombed the tank farm, he said, "I do not discuss my orders as commander-in-chief and head of state. There are things that I only share with the military, they tell me." End of quote. To put it bluntly, he never made up his mind. Well, God be with him. According to a number of Telegram channels, our troops have already left Gastomel, Borodyanka, Irpin and a number of villages north of Brovary. Whether this is true or not, we will soon find out. But I very much doubt that the words of military commander Kotz, that the order received to go beyond the ribbon at all, that is, to go beyond the border of Russia, will be executed. But most likely, I still think that the bridgeheads in the Chernihiv and Kiev regions will be abandoned. And somewhere in a parallel universe at this time, Bandera's troops are already attacking Moscow, not exactly Moscow, but Belgorod for sure. Zhavitsky, Gauleader of the Sumy military administration, reports that we had only the southern part of the region occupied. And today they are starting to dig in many communities, they are starting to walk around, looking for local authorities. We understand that this is the beginning of the occupation of the central part of the Sumy region. I don't know whether the Gauleader is right or not, but we will soon find out about this too. The situation from our non-partners on the Izyum-Stalinsk map looks exactly like this. In fact, the fighting is going on somewhere in the middle closer to the Slavic Kramatorsk group. And the map with the real state of affairs in the Donbas looks somewhat different. At the same time, the governor of the Kharkiv region, Senegyubov, says that hostilities will soon unfold in Barvinkovo, southwest of Izyum. This is a logical one of the directions of the offensive of the Russian armed forces. There are options for an attack on Lozovo and others. Which of them will actually be implemented, we will also find out after the fact. And one more card from our non-partners from the west. But already with Popasna and Severodonetsk. Even these maps show that the front from the north is approaching the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk grouping. Therefore, the inhabitants of these cities really should leave the cities because urban battles are inevitable. British intelligence Mi-6 notified the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine that Russia was going to launch an operation to capture Nikolaev in the near future. This seems like a logical step. The situation there is quite bad for the armed forces of the Kiev regime. But we'll see if it will be implemented and when. But in this photo, this is another photo of a naval mine installed on the streets of Mariupol. If someone misunderstands, then the smallest anchor mine has 20 kilograms of TNT, a normal standard horned mine has 115 kilograms. This gives an answer to the question of what explodes in such a way that it blows the floor of the house without any raids, sounds of shots, overflights of aircraft, and the like. And this is Major General of the Security Service of Ukraine Leonid Pyatyp. This is the former head of the Department for the Protection of Constitutional Statehood. He did not want to defend national statehood and tried to flee abroad using forged documents but was detained at the border. But the general of the Security Service of Ukraine, Andrei Naumov, was disgracefully stripped of his rank. Since he fled on February 22, apparently having received information about the imminent start of hostilities. Interestingly, he did not run alone, but together with the head of the Security Service Bakanov, who after that returned back to Kiev. He was treated kindly, he was not deprived of his title and position, although he lived in the same room with Naumov in Germany. Well, these are the realities of the Kiev regime. But this Nazi promises to take terrible revenge on the Lvovites for the fact that they greatly increased the price of housing rent. Complains that his mother had to rent a one-room apartment for $1,000. This is the answer to the question, as they say in Ukraine, the whole crane at once. And here is the fake of the day. The Kiev media dispersed tales about the first deaths of soldiers of the Russian armed forces from radiation sickness in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant zone. A photo from a computer toy should convince believers that this is indeed the case. Well, probably the photo of the day is a photograph of the head of the German Foreign Ministry Baerbock, who visited Ukrainian refugees. Indeed, the time has come when no one is interested in facts, but clearly Ukraine is selling passports with might and main. And graffiti in Kazovska Mitrovica. This is Kosovo, Serbia. It is written, Serbs with Russians. Finally, let me remind you of Stalin's words about kowtowing before the West. We must fight the spirit of self-abasement among many of our intellectuals. I will add the non-intellectuals too. Well, the last advice to the so-called Russian guardians, cheers for the patriot, who often denounced something to the FSB, the prosecutor's office and the investigative committee, and so on. Panov, there is no need to complain about me to these organizations, there have already accumulated quite a lot of such pieces of paper over the past 8 years. It's pointless for me to threaten either. I've gotten used to threats in 8 years. And I went where there is no threat. But they do. If you have incontinence, then write to the Prosecutor's Office of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea in exile or to the Security Service of Ukraine. There are several criminal cases that have been filed against me. They will gladly add your complaints to what they have. To all the rest of the overwhelming majority of normal people, thank you very much for your help, for your support, for what you are doing. For all of us. I wish you a speedy victory. Goodbye.